They told you discipline is everything. They said that if you wake up early, work hard, say no to distractions, and keep your emotions in check, the world will reward you, that you'll become successful, respected, even admired. But Machiavelli saw through that illusion centuries ago. Discipline is a cage. It's a leash cleverly disguised as virtue. Society praises it because it makes you predictable, manageable, harmless. When you become disciplined in the way they want, you're no longer dangerous, you're tamed. You become a well-behaved tool, a pawn in someone else's game. And worst of all, you'll think you're doing the right thing. Machiavelli never glorified discipline for its own sake. He glorified power, and to have power, you must never let yourself be trapped in one form. The disciplined man who obeys every rule, sticks to every routine, and sacrifices his instincts for order becomes rigid. And the rigid man breaks. The world doesn't reward discipline. It rewards adaptability, boldness, ruthlessness. A man who is always disciplined becomes easy to control. You can predict his next move. You know he will follow protocol because he believes in it more than he believes in victory. That's the moment he becomes prey. That's the moment a wolf, someone less moral, someone less obedient, but more intelligent, more chaotic, more alive, wins. Machiavelli warned, never fall in love with your own virtue. The disciplined man does just that. He follows order, even when it leads him off a cliff. He obeys instructions, even when it costs him power, because he's afraid of appearing disloyal, afraid of breaking the illusion of goodness. But politics, power, life, they don't care about appearances. They care about results. When you tie your identity to discipline, you kill spontaneity, you silence instinct, and you hand over your freedom to a set of routines that someone else likely designed for you. What they call discipline is often submission in disguise. You submit to a pattern, to a code, to someone else's system. And systems are built to serve the system builders, not the followers. Ask yourself, who benefits from your discipline? Who wins when you get up at 5 a.m. to go to a job that doesn't respect you? Who profits when you hold your tongue in meetings? When you restrain your ambition to not step on toes? When you sacrifice what you want because it's not the disciplined thing to do. It's not you, it's the ones above you. Machiavelli admired cunning over control. He admired men who bent the rules, who adapted like water. The disciplined man might survive, but he'll never rule, because ruling requires audacity, not obedience. Discipline tells you to wait your turn. Power tells you to take what's yours. The moment you let discipline become a religion, you lose the very thing it was supposed to protect, your edge. You become slow, predictable, afraid of breaking rhythm, afraid of improvising. But power is jazz, not classical music. It rewards the one who adapts to the moment, not the one who rehearses for it. You've been lied to. They told you discipline builds character. What they meant was, it builds compliance. You become easy to manage, a soldier, not a general, a worker, not a king, a follower, not a leader. And Machiavelli would tell you that if you want to rise, if you want to dominate, if you want to leave a mark on history, you must be dangerous. You must be free, not free to follow rules, but free to break them, not free to stay calm, but free to explode when the moment demands it, not free to suppress your will, but free to impose it. And here's the paradox. True discipline, the kind that serves you, looks nothing like the discipline they preach. Because it's flexible, aggressive, sharp, it obeys no clock, no calendar. It is not based on routine. It is based on purpose. Your purpose, and that's why most people fear it. They prefer safety. They prefer the comfort of the cage. They prefer being told what to do, even when it kills them slowly. They would rather be disciplined and miserable than chaotic and alive. But not you, because once you see the trap, you can't unsee it. Once you realize that being perfectly disciplined in a broken system just means being perfectly broken, you wake up. And when you wake up, you understand what Machiavelli meant when he wrote that the ends justify the means. Not because morality doesn't matter, but because power has no patience for illusions. A man chained by discipline will hesitate, but power belongs to the man who strikes first, who moves fast, who improvises, who decides in the moment what's right, what's necessary, what's effective. The disciplined man might sleep well at night, but the one who bends the rules decides who gets to sleep at all. You want proof? Look around. The world is not led by the most disciplined. It's led by the bold, the unpredictable, the strategic, the ruthless. Discipline is the lie they feed to the masses to keep them marching in straight lines while the rulers take what they want. And here's the final trick. They make you feel guilty for wanting more. They tell you that ambition is greed, that intensity is dangerous, that breaking from routine is reckless. But Machiavelli would tell you, guilt is the tool of the powerless, and discipline is the chain they wrap around your neck with your own consent. So break it. You don't need to be tamed. You need to be sharpened. Discipline teaches you how to behave. Strategy teaches you how to win. And strategy, unlike discipline, is flexible. It's brutal when it needs to be, calm when it chooses to be. It adapts, it evolves, it wins. Do not confuse discipline with power. Power does not bow. Power does not wait. Power does not obey for the sake of obedience. It uses discipline when useful and throws it away when it becomes a burden. That's the real lesson. Discipline is a tool, not a virtue, and you are not here to be virtuous. You are here to be victorious. They'll call you lazy the moment you break their rhythm. They'll call you undisciplined when you reject their structure. But those are just words used to shame wolves into acting like sheep. Because if you stop behaving like they do, you can no longer be managed like they are. Machiavelli understood something that most never realize. Obedience and discipline are the armor of the weak. It's how they protect themselves in a world they don't control. When you can't win by force, you resort to order. When you can't rise by cunning, you fall back on routine. And when you can't lead with strength, you hide behind rules. But if you want power, if you want to truly shape your own destiny, you cannot live by rules written by others. Discipline in the way they preach it is not strength, it's surrender. You're giving away the chaos inside you. You're dulling your sharpest edge, unpredictability. Because the disciplined man is always predictable. He trains at the same time, sleeps at the same time, speaks in the same way, reacts with the same words, shows up the same and dies the same. There's no fear in facing a man like that, because you already know what he'll do. And when you can be predicted, you can be defeated. Machiavelli didn't trust men who were too orderly. He saw them as weak, not because order itself is bad, but because an obsession with control reveals fear. A fear of change, a fear of surprise, a fear of chaos. But chaos is life, and power is born from those who master it, not those who hide from it. When the enemy is watching, they should never know what you're going to do next. That's why discipline can become your greatest vulnerability. It locks you in a pattern. It puts a collar around your neck and calls it a crown. But a real crown is heavy because it comes with choice, with risk, with freedom. If you want to rule, you must become a shapeshifter. The fox and the lion, Machiavelli said. The fox to see the traps, the lion to tear them apart. But discipline turns you into a chained lion, strong but still captive. The world will respect your power, but only as long as you stay behind the bars they built for you. Let them call you undisciplined. Let them say you lack routine, because what they really mean is you're not under control, you're not predictable, and that terrifies them, because they can't outmaneuver someone who doesn't play by their rules. They want you tired, they want you obedient, they want you believing that discipline is the highest form of strength, because then you'll never rebel, you'll never question, you'll never break their system. You'll wake up at 5 a.m. and go to war with yourself, instead of going to war with them. But Machiavelli would tell you, discipline without domination is a slave's virtue. It's useful only when it leads to strategy, when it leads to your rise. If it's not a weapon, it's a weakness. If it doesn't increase your power, it's poisoning you. Ask yourself this: who's writing your schedule? Who told you what discipline looks like? Who benefits when you follow their map to success? And why are you still following it if it leads you to mediocrity? Most people live like prisoners in their own habits. They call it self-mastery, but they're just scared to change. They fear spontaneity. They fear the unknown. But power only lives in the unknown. That's why those who are too disciplined never reach it. They're too afraid to improvise, too attached to their routines to evolve. And here's the deeper truth. They discipline you from birth not for your benefit, but for theirs. They teach you to sit still, to speak softly, to wait your turn, to obey the bell. From the school to the office, it's all the same machine. They call it discipline. You call it life, but it's training to be a cog. Break the machine, destroy the rhythm. Real power doesn't live in the schedule. It lives in the silence between the beats, in the moments where others hesitate, and you act, in the moments where they wait for orders, and you create your own mission. When you're too disciplined, you miss those moments. You're too busy thinking, this isn't part of the plan. But the plan is outdated. The plan was written for the masses. You are not the masses. Machiavelli wrote for those who want to lead. And leaders don't follow schedules. They follow necessity. They move when movement is required. They stop when waiting is wise. They use discipline like a sword, not a chain. The disciplined man keeps walking even when the path leads nowhere, because he's afraid to stop, afraid to look like he failed, afraid to be seen as inconsistent. But inconsistency is not weakness, it's evolution. You adapt, you shift, you change your mind, and that makes you dangerous. They will shame you. They will say you lack direction. They'll say you're impulsive. But what they're really saying is, we can't control you, and that's your power. Stop apologizing for not living like them. They are not free, they are just trained. And Machiavelli would laugh at the idea of calling that wisdom. Wisdom is seeing what others refuse to see. And what most refuse to see is that their so-called discipline is just domestication. They're not disciplined, they're sedated. And you are waking up to the fact that discipline is only valuable when you are the one using it as a tool, not when it's being used against you. Waking up to the fact that breaking your routine might be the smartest thing you ever do, that canceling the plan might be the beginning of your rise, that stepping outside the lines isn't failure, it's freedom. They will try to trap you with their approval. You're so disciplined, they'll say, hoping you crave the praise more than you crave power. But praise is a leash, approval is a drug, and you don't need it. What you need is the truth. And the truth is, no empire was built on routine. No throne was earned by following someone else's instructions. No legacy was forged by men who never broke the rules. Machiavelli knew that, and now so do you. So stop living like a soldier when you were born to be a general. Stop following their commandments when you were made to write your own. Stop calling yourself disciplined when what you really are is obedient. There is a difference, and power knows the difference. You want to be great, don't be disciplined. Be sharp, be fluid, be aware. Be dangerous. Be a student of strategy, not a servant of schedules. And the next time someone tells you that discipline is the key to success, ask yourself this: whose success are they talking about, theirs or yours? Because once you begin to think like Machiavelli, you stop worshiping the structure, you stop living for routine, and you start playing for power. They will never admit it, but the truth is this: they don't want you to be disciplined for your own sake. They want you to be predictable, contained, prepackaged for a system that feeds on your obedience. And when you finally reject that system, when you walk away from the discipline they've taught you to worship, you'll feel fear, but that fear means you're finally free. Machiavelli wouldn't have cared about your perfect morning routine, your color-coded planner, or your ability to delay gratification. He would have asked one question: does it make you powerful? Because power is all that matters, not the illusion of control, not the comfort of habit. Power, the ability to move people, to change direction when it serves you, to betray the old self for something greater. That's what being undisciplined really allows: evolution. They want you stuck. That's why discipline is the religion of the average. It gives them a sense of meaning, without ever risking anything real. They call it a good life, but a good life, according to who? The people who never rose above the noise. Discipline turns you into a cog that never complains. But a cog cannot take the wheel. It cannot change the machine. It can only keep it running. You were not born to maintain the system. You were born to challenge it. They'll say, but without discipline, you'll fall into chaos. And they're right. You will, but that chaos is where you rebuild, where you reshape your identity, where you burn the weak parts of yourself and come out with only what is sharp, what is real. Machiavelli would have seen that chaos as a test. The disciplined man sees chaos and panics because it breaks his structure. The powerful man sees chaos and thrives because it exposes who's real and who's just rehearsing. You've been taught to fear instability, but instability is the birthplace of power. Revolutions don't come from schedules. They come from breaks in the system, from men who dare to act without asking permission, who speak without a script, who show up when no one expects them, who burn the rulebook and write their own. The disciplined man is a creature of habit, but the habit becomes his prison. He becomes more loyal to the ritual than to the result. He keeps grinding even when the ground beneath him is cracking, because he doesn't know how to stop. That's not strength, that's blindness. Your mind must be sharp enough to cut through your own traditions. Your instincts must be stronger than your training, because when the world shifts, and it always does, the disciplined man hesitates. He looks for the old rhythm, but by then, the game has already changed. Machiavelli knew this. That's why he never preached loyalty to a method. He preached loyalty to a goal. Your method is only as valuable as its ability to get you what you want. The moment it fails, abandon it. And if you can't abandon it, then you were never in control. It was. The most dangerous men in history weren't the most disciplined. They were the most fluid. They knew how to adapt, how to lie, how to strike, how to vanish, how to return. They didn't waste time trying to appear virtuous. They spent their lives learning how to win. Discipline is slow death in disguise when it becomes your identity. It wraps itself in noble language, sacrifice, focus, self-mastery. But what good is mastering yourself if you never master the world? What good is sacrifice if it's never for your own throne? If you live every day exactly as you planned, you're no longer thinking, you're sleepwalking. Power comes from the man who can shatter his own pattern, who can look at what he built and destroy it if it no longer serves him. That's not recklessness, that's courage. They want you disciplined because a man without flexibility is easier to beat. They know you won't deviate, you'll stay on track, even if the track leads to nothing. That's why they applaud your discipline, because it works for them. Break that track, burn that applause, tear up the map and learn to move by instinct, not instruction. Discipline is the enemy when it becomes your god, because gods don't answer questions. They just demand obedience. And obedience, even to yourself, is the beginning of slavery. Machiavelli would look you in the eye and ask, do you want to be good or do you want to be feared? Because the disciplined man is good, but the feared man, he changes history. History remembers the ones who break form, who shatter timelines, who act on timing, not timetables, and when the world tilts, only those who dare to bend with it survive. The disciplined man snaps, the strategist flows. Stop asking how to stay disciplined. Start asking how to stay dangerous. Danger doesn't wear a uniform. It doesn't follow rules. It doesn't wake up at 5 a.m. to please anyone. It moves in silence. It adapts. It vanishes. It strikes. That's what you must become. You weren't put here to be admired for your discipline. You were put here to make people nervous when you enter a room, to be the unknown variable, the exception, the threat. You want real power. You must be willing to abandon even what works when something better appears. And the disciplined man can't do that. He's too loyal to yesterday, too afraid to start over. But the powerful man, he burns everything to the ground and walks out of the smoke reborn. That's the final truth. Discipline will keep you where you are. Strategy will take you where you want to go. And strategy doesn't care what time you wake up. It cares if you know how to move when no one else does. It cares if you can read people, twist situations and pull strings behind the curtain. It cares if you win. So ask yourself one last question. Are you disciplined or are you free? Because you can't be both.